The brave little tailor. One summer morning, a little tailor was sitting on his board near the window and working cheerfully when an old woman came down the street crying, "Jam for sale! Good jam for sale!" The cry sounded pleasant in the little tailor's ears, so he looked out of the window and called out, "Here, my good woman, come here. I'll buy from you." So the peasant woman climbed the 3 steps with her heavy basket and had to unpack and show all her pots to the tailor. He looked at every one of them and, lifting all the lids, put his nose near each and said at last, "The jam seems pretty good. You may weigh me out an ounce." The woman, who had expected to find a good customer, gave him what he asked for, but went off grumbling. "This jam is the very good for me," cried the little tailor. "It will give me strength and activity." He took some bread from the cupboard, cut a whole round of the loaf, and spread the jam on it, laid it near him. He said, "Before eating, I have to finish this coat." The scent of the sweet jam was spreading throughout the shop, where there were many of flies, who were attracted by it and flew to partake. "Who asked you to come?" said the tailor, and drove the unbidden guests away. But the flies, not understanding his language, were not to be got rid of like that, and returned in larger numbers than before. The tailor was not able to stand it any longer, took a ragged cloth, and saying, "Now, I'll let you have it," beat it among them unmercifully. When he stopped, he counted the slain. He found 7 lying dead before him. "This is indeed somewhat," he said, wondering at his own gallantry. "The whole town shall know this." So he hastened to cut out a belt, and he stitched it and wrote on it in large capitals, 7 at one blow. "The town, did I say?" said the little tailor. "No, the whole world shall hear about it." His heart quivered with joy like a lamb's tail. The tailor fastened the belt and began to think of going out to the world, for his workshop seemed too small for his status. So he looked about in the house for something that it would be useful to take with him. He found nothing but an old piece of cheese, which he put in his pocket. Beside the door, he noticed that a bird had got caught in the bushes, so he took that and put it in his pocket with the cheese. Then he set out gallantly, and as he was slim and active, he felt no fatigue. Meeting the giant. The way led over a mountain, and when he reached the peak, he saw a terrible giant sitting there, looking at the passers silently. The tailor went bravely up to him, called out to him, and said, "Comrade, good day. There you sit, looking over the wide world. I am on the way thither to seek my fortune. Do you want to go with me?" The giant looked at the tailor with clear contemptuously and said, "You young rascal, you miserable fellow." "That may be," answered the little tailor, and undoing his coat, he showed the giant his belt. "You can read this to see whether I am a man or not." The giant read, 7 at one blow, and thinking it meant men that the tailor had killed, felt at once more respect for the young fellow. But as the giant wanted to make sure, he took up a stone and squeezed it so hard that water came out of it. "Now you can do this," said the giant. "That is, if you have the strength for it." "That's not much," said the little tailor. "This is a child toy in my city." He put his hand in his pocket, took out the cheese and squeezed it. "Well," said he, "what do you think of this?" The giant did not know what to say, for he could not believe it of that dwarf. Then the giant took a stone and threw it so high that it was nearly out of sight. "Now, young fellow, suppose you do that." "Well thrown," said the tailor. But the stone fell back to earth again. "I will throw you one that will never come back." He put his hand in his pocket, took out the bird, and threw it into the air. The bird, when it found itself free, took wing, flew off, and didn't fell down. "What do you think of this, comrade?" asked the tailor. "Well done," said the giant, "but we will see if you can lift the same weight like me or not." He led the little tailor to a strong oak tree which had fallen and was on the ground and said, "Now, if you are strong enough, help me to carry this tree out of the wood." "Willingly," answered the young man. "You take the trunk on your shoulders. I will take the branches with all their foliage. That is difficult." The giant took the trunk on his shoulders, and the tailor sat on a branch, and the giant, who could not see what he was doing, had to carry the whole tree and the little man on it as well. The little man was very happy and whistled the tune. There were 3 tailors riding, as if carrying the tree was a child's play. The giant became tired out and cried, "Take care, I must let the tree down." The tailor jumped off quickly and held the branches of the tree with both arms, as if he was carrying it. He said, "You see, you can't carry the tree, though you are such a big fellow." They went on together a little farther, and they came to a cherry tree, and the giant held the topmost branches, where the ripest fruit hung, and pulling them downwards, gave them to the tailor to hold, asking him to eat. But the little tailor was too weak to hold the tree, and as the giant let go, the tree sprang back, and the tailor was caught up into the air. When he dropped down again without any damage, the giant said to him, "How is this? Haven't you strength enough to hold such weak branches?" "It is not strength that is lacking," answered the little tailor. "How should it, to one who had slain 7 at one blow? I just jumped over the tree because the hunters are shooting down there in the bushes. Can you do the same?" The giant made the attempt, and not being able to jump over the tree, he remained hanging in the branches, so that once again, the little tailor won. The giant said, "As you are such a gallant fellow, come with me to my cave and stay there for a night." The tailor was quite willing, and he followed him. When they reached the cave, there sat some other giants by the fire, and each had a roasted sheep in his hand and was eating it. The little tailor looked round and thought, "There is more space here than in my workshop." The giant showed him a bed and told him he had better lie down on it and sleep. The bed was, however, too big for the tailor, so he crept into a corner of it to sleep. At midnight, the giant got up, took a great rod of iron and beat the bed through with one stroke. He supposed he got rid of the tailor. Very early in the morning, the giants went into the wood and forgot all about the little tailor. But when they saw him coming after them alive and healthy, they were terribly frightened, and thinking he was going to kill them. The little tailor and the king. The little tailor marched on aimlessly. After he had gone a great way, he entered the courtyard of a king's palace, and there he felt so tired that he lay down and fell asleep. At the same time came many people who looked at him very curiously and read on his belt, 7 at one blow. They said, "Oh, why should this great lord come here in time of peace? What a mighty champion is he?" They told the king about him. They thought that if war should break out, what a worthy and useful man he would be, and that he must not be allowed to depart at any price. The king summoned his council and sent one of his courtiers to the little tailor to beg him as soon as he wake up to accept to serve in the king's army. The messenger stood and waited at the sleeper's side until his limbs began to stretch and his eyes to open. Then he told him about the message from the king. The answer was, "That was the reason for which I came," said the little tailor. "I am ready to enter the king's service." The tailor was welcomed, and a separate house was set apart for him. But the rest of the soldiers were jealous of the little tailor, and they wished him 1,000 miles away. They said, "What can we do? If we quarrel with him, then 7 of us will fall at each blow. That will not be good for us." So they came to a resolution and went all together to the king to ask for their discharge. The king felt sorry to lose all his faithful servants because of one man, and he wished that he had never seen him. He would willingly get rid of him if he might, but he did not dare to dismiss the little tailor, for fear he should kill all the king's people and place himself on the throne. The king thought about it, and at last made up his mind. He sent for the little tailor, and told him that as he was so great a warrior, he had a proposal to make to him. He told him that in a wood dwelt two giants who did great damage of robbery, murder, and fire. No man could go near them for fear of his life. If the tailor should overcome and slay both these giants, the king would give him his only daughter in marriage, half his kingdom as a dowry, and 100 horsemen should go with him to give him assistance. That would be something for a man like me, thought the little tailor. A beautiful princess and half a kingdom are not to be offered every day. He said to the king, "Oh yes, I can soon overcome the giants and yet have no need of the 100 horsemen. He who can kill 7 at one blow needn't to be afraid of 2. So the little tailor set out, and 100 horsemen followed him. When he came to the border of the wood, he said to his escort, "Stay here while I go to attack the giants." He entered the wood and looked around. After a while, he saw the 2 giants. They were lying down under a tree asleep and snoring so that all the branches shook. The little tailor filled both his pockets with stones and climbed up into the tree and made his way to an overhanging bough so that he could set just above the sleepers. And from there he let one stone after another fall on the chest of one of the giants. For a long time, the giant was quite unaware of this, but at last he waked up and pushed his comrade and said, "Why do you hit me?" "You are dreaming," said the other. "I didn't touch you." They composed themselves again to sleep, and the tailor let fall a stone on the other giant. "What can that be?" cried he. "What are you casting at me?" "I am casting nothing at you," answered the first, grumbling. They disputed about it for a while, but as they were tired, they gave it up at last, and their eyes closed once more. The little tailor began his game anew, picked out a heavier stone, and threw it down with force upon the first giant's chest. "This is too much," cried he, and sprang up like a madman and struck his companion such a blow that the tree shook above them. The other paid him back with a heavy blow, and they fought with such fury that they tore up trees from their roots to use for weapons against each other, so that at last they were dead. Now the little tailor got down. "Good luck, once again," said he, "that the tree I was sitting in did not get torn up too, or else I should have had to jump like a squirrel from one tree to another." Then he drew his sword and gave each of the giants a few hacks in the breast, went back to the horsemen and said, "The mission is over. I killed both of them." But it went hard with me. In the struggle they rooted up trees to defend themselves, but it was of no use. They had to do with a man who can kill 7 at one blow. "Without a single wound?" asked the horseman. "Nothing of the sort," answered the tailor. "I have not turned a hair." The horsemen still would not believe it and rode into the wood to see. There they found the giants wallowing in their blood, and all around them lying the uprooted trees. The king broke his promise. The little tailor then claimed the promised boon, but the king broke his promise, and he sought again how to get rid of the hero. "Before you can have my daughter and half of my kingdom," said he to the tailor, "you must do another heroic act. In the wood lives a unicorn who does great damage. You must catch him." The tailor answered, "A unicorn does not strike more terror into me than 2 giants. 7 at one blow, that is my way." So, taking a rope and an axe with him, he went out to the wood and told those who were ordered to attend him to wait outside the wood. The unicorn soon came out and approached him, as if he would kill him. The tailor said to him, "Slow down. Haste is not so good." The tailor stood silently behind a tree. The unicorn ran against the tree and stuck his horns so deep into the trunk that he could not get it out again. "Now I have you," said the tailor, coming out from behind the tree. And putting the rope round the unicorn's neck, he took the axe, set free the horn, and when all his party were assembled, he led forth the animal and brought it to the king. The king did not yet wish to fulfill his promise and put a third task to do. Before the wedding could take place, the tailor was to hunt a wild boar, which damaged parts of the wood. The hunters were to accompany him. "All right," said the tailor, "this is a child's toy." But he did not take the hunters into the wood, and they were pleased, for the wild boar had many a time before received them so violently that they had no desire to chase him. When the boar saw the tailor, he ran at him with foaming mouth and gleaming tusks to bear him to the ground, but the nimble man rushed into a chapel, which chanced to be near, and jumped quickly out of a window on the other side. The boar ran after him, and when he got inside, the door shut, and there he was imprisoned, for the creature was too big and unwieldy to jump out of the window. The little tailor called the hunters that they might see the prisoner with their own eyes, and then he went to the king, who now, whether he liked it or not, was obliged to fulfill his promise. So, the wedding was held with great splendor and little joy, and the tailor became a king. The tailor's secret is revealed. One night, the young queen heard her husband talking in his sleep and saying, "Now, boy, make me that waistcoat and patch me those breeches, or I'll beat you." So, as she perceived of what low birth her husband was, she went to her father the next morning and told him about it, begged him to set her free from a man who was a miserable tailor. The king bade her be comforted, saying, "Tonight, leave your bedroom door open. My guard shall stand outside. When he is asleep, they shall come in and take him to a ship. He shall be sent to the other side of the world." The young queen felt consoled, but the young king's faithful guard, who had been listening, went to the hymn and disclosed the whole plan. The young king said, "I will foil their plot." At night, he lay down as usual in bed, and when his wife thought that he was asleep, she got up, opened the door, and lay down again. The little tailor, who seemed to be asleep, began to murmur plainly, "Now, boy, make me that waistcoat and patch me those breeches, or I will beat you. I have slain 7 at one blow, killed 2 giants, caught a unicorn, and taken a wild boar. Shall I be afraid of those who are standing outside my room door?" When they heard the tailor, a great fear seized them. They fled away as if they had been wild hares. None of them would venture to attack him. So, the little tailor remained a king for the rest of his life,